Hey, it's Debbie Potts, and I wanted to dive into the detox highways as I've been going down these rabbit holes the last few months to understand how the body needs all the parts and players working at optimal level to do what it's supposed to do to create metabolic harmony. So we want to work on the foundations. Think of building a house. You just don't start framing a house and putting the sides on it before you built the foundation that it stands on and make sure the electrical wiring is working. So I was trying to put it together, detoxification order of operations. So you can see that we've got cells, right? We're made of cells. We have the lymph fluid we can go into, moves through the blood, through the liver releases bile, and the bile to the gut through the stool, and their fat soluble toxins release. So, at a cellular level, this is where detoxification begins. The lymphatic drainage system is really important to have functioning because the lymph is collecting and draining out toxins. We have the liver processing and neutralizing toxins. We have the liver packaging up toxins and releasing bile. We need the bile to be healthy so it can be packed with those toxins and escorted out on that bus. The bile and toxins are eliminated in stool, and the kidneys are important to function because the water soluble toxins exit via urine and sweat. So we need to understand the importance of opening up the drainage pathways before we push any detoxification. So there's an order to drainage and detoxification. So the water soluble toxins from the cells through the lymph, through the blood, to the liver, through the kidneys, out through the urine. You can't detox what you cannot drain. So we need to support lymph first, and the liver, and the bile and gut. And we need to open the drains before we push detoxification. The lymphatic system is the body's drainage network. The lymphatic system is the body's internal drainage and defense network. It runs parallel to our blood vessels and consists of lymph fluid, vessels, and nodes. The lymphatic system is collecting waste, toxins, and debris from our tissues and transports these immune cells to fight infection. The lymphatic system returns clean fluid back into the bloodstream and acts as a bridge between cellular detox and liver elimination. So interesting that the lymph does not have a pump as a heart. It depends on movement, breath, fascia mobility, and hydration to flow. Now, every cell creates waste from metabolism, inflammation, or toxin exposure. The waste byproducts that leave the cell enter the interstitial fluid. That's the space between the cells. So detox starts at a cellular level, not in the liver or the colon. So cellular release. Detox begins here, step 1. Step 2 is the lymphatic drainage, the waste collector. The lymphatic capillaries absorb this interstitial fluid, now called lymph. Lymph travels through the vessels and the nodes where it is filtered and monitored by immune cells. This prevents infections and keeps inflammatory waste from building up. If lymph stagnates, toxins and inflammation accumulate in the tissues. So we need to understand the order of operations. Let's see, let me change the slide here. Step 3 is the liver filtration, the master detox organ. So think about this, the lymph eventually drains into the bloodstream and reaches the liver. The liver performs what you've probably heard before in previous episodes, phase 1 and phase 2 detoxification. I always think of the liver detoxification phase 1 and 2 similar to the washing machine. Phase one is converting toxins into intermediates, often reactive forms. Then I always think of this, there's transition when phase one waits to go into phase two. And this is the important part. There's this little T1, T2 that we talk about triathlons, but from phase one to phase two, it's really important to make sure we have the right timing because these toxins are now more reactive after phase one. And they need to go right into phase two where they're conjugated because this phase is where these toxins are binding. They're the intermediates with glutathione. So I was thinking of different buckets. So we've got the glutathione bucket, the glycine bucket, funnel, taurine, and then sulfate. This helps makes the toxins more safe and into water-soluble form. So the liver is transforming the toxins from being dangerous to being disposable. So little infographic, drugs, xenobiotics go through phase one. And there's 57 genes that are related to the CYP450 process. This is where we want to make sure we've got all the nutrients on board, and then we go into phase two. Remember, there's that spot in between before they go into phase two, and we want to get these compounds water soluble, so they're removed out through bile, through stool, or out through urine for the water soluble toxins. So step 4 is bile secretion. This is a toxin transportation system. The liver is packaging fat-soluble toxins into bile, which flows into the gallbladder and then the small intestine. Bile carries the toxins along with excess hormones and cholesterol to the gut for elimination if all things are working. But if the bile is sluggish, these toxins can reabsorb into circulation. So bile flow is our toxins flowing. Step 5, gut and the stool are the elimination pathways to exit. Once the bile and the toxins enter the intestines, they must be bound and moved out. But to do this properly, we need healthy motility. We can't be constipated. We need adequate fibers and binders to trap the toxins and a balanced microbiome to prevent reabsorption of these toxins. So if the gut is sluggish, detox backs up as a clogged drain, and we have problems then. So we want to make sure, you can see the picture of the liver here, and this little gallbladder sac, people think that does nothing. It has a lot of roles. The gallstone between the gallbladder is here. People get gallstones, and then they get this nice little gallbladder taken out because they didn't know that they need the right ingredients to keep that bile flowing and the right habits of eating healthy fats and all that we talked about in the previous episode. Step 6, water-soluble toxins from the liver go through the kidneys via urine. The skin also aids detox through sweating, an alternate route when the liver or kidneys are overloaded. So sauna, hydration, mineral balance enhance these pathways. So we need to make sure we have this kidney and skin filtration working as secondary routes. So we need the right minerals and the right blood pH, electrolyte balance, the right drainage pathways open. Now, step 7, we need the nervous system regulated, the vagus nerve, the master switch, because the vagus nerve is signaling rest, digestion, bile flow, and detoxification. But if we have chronic stress or sympathetic dominance shutting the system down, we need to understand all things that the vagus nerve activates is now not functioning at optimal level. So techniques as 4-7-8 breathing, humming, cold exposure are a few of the many ways that can help restore the vagus nerve, create vagal tone, think of it strength training for your vagus nerve, and open the detox pathways. So if we are not able to be in a parasympathetic state, we are not able to detoxify properly. So the role of the lymphatic system in detoxification is really important, how we connect the cells to the lymph, to the liver, to the bile, to the exit, the drainage pathways. So looking at the two separate systems, the lymphatic system and the bile systems are separate, but they both have roles in removing toxins. The lymph starts first, moving the cellular waste, immune debris, inflammatory byproducts from the tissues. And then the bile is carrying the fat, soluble toxins, hormones, and metabolites that the liver has processed for the elimination. So we have the fascia that's important for flow, the pathway of flow. We have the lymph is the drainage network, draining toxins, waste, excess fluids. The vagus nerve is needed to activate bile flow motility. Liver and bile are eliminating toxins from our body. And the liver detox connection here is that should be working to create metabolic harmony. Altogether, the fascia, lymph, vagus nerve, and detoxification work together, or the fascia, lymph, vagus support detoxification, and that bile flow is needed. So this is, again, just went over this. The lymph and the bile work together. Lymph capillaries absorb this fluid and becomes lymph. Lymph drains toward the liver and the bloodstream. Then the lymph from the gut and lower body collects up in the cisterna chili and travels through the thoracic duct, eventually emptying into the bloodstream near the left subclavian vein. Once in circulation, those waste products reach the liver for filtration and conversion. Then the liver filtrates the blood and the lymph-derived waste to transform toxins, especially from fat-soluble ones, into water-soluble forms and binding them to bile for removal. This bile is then released into the gallbladder and the small intestine to carry toxins out through the stool. So think of that, how they interact. Now, how bile is connected here. Bile is not lymph fluid. It's secretion from the liver. Bile contains toxins that have been neutralized or bound in the liver, that phase 1 to phase 2, and then the bile contains those toxins coming out from phase 3 or to phase 2, going out through phase 3, the drainage pathways. But again, if bile is not flowing, it's stagnant, these toxins can reabsorb into the bloodstream, causing symptoms, fatigue, hormone imbalances, headaches, skin breakouts. So we need to look at bile flow and drainage pathways. The lymph and the bile work together at different parts of the order of operation. So the lymph is moving the waste from the bottom up to the liver. It's going around doing housekeeping. But the key thing is the lymph doesn't have a heart as the cardiovascular system has a heart to pump it. Lymph moves from the feet up to the liver if we move, if we breathe, if we pump the lymph as the vibration plates, the rebounder, doing calf raises, dry brushing, moving the lymph up to the liver. The liver filters and binds the toxins, but we need nutrients for phase 1 and phase 2 to happen, as glutathione, glycine, choline. Bile is carrying the toxins out of the body. Bile is made in the liver, stored in the gallbladder, but the bile needs to be made from phosphatidylcholine and other ingredients that we went into previously. The gut eliminates toxins via the stool. So we need proper motility, we need good bacteria, and we need binders to get those toxins, grab them, and escort them out. So the lymph is bringing toxins to the liver. The bile carries toxins out of the body. And so these are two sides of the same detoxification. The lymph delivers and bile removes. So we have cellular drainage, collecting the waste, inflammatory molecules, and excess fluid from the tissues, transporting them up to the liver. We have the liver filtering the blood and the toxins, packaging up these fat-soluble toxins in a nice little bow to get them to be released out the door. Drainage pathways need to be open. And then the bile carries the toxins into the intestines, exits out via the stool. And then the lymph enhances bile delivery to the liver, open up the bile flow, and more. So the lymph is the body's garbage transportation system. The bile is the garbage disposal. Both of them must be open for optimal detoxification. If the lymph can't deliver the waste to the liver, the toxins stay in the tissues. If the bile can't flow out, toxins get reabsorbed or stuck. So if we have puffiness, swelling, cellulite, constipation, floating stools, skin breakouts, itching, headaches, brain fog, fatigue, body heaviness, hormonal issues, that's to me lymph congestion and or bile congestion. So the lymph and bile work together. Cellular drainage and excretion. So to restore the flow, we want to move more. Try dry brushing a few minutes before you shower. Dry brushing on dry skin. The rebounder. Lymphatic massage. The big 6 reset you can do, the 6 lymphatic points, takes 3 minutes to do. Proper hydration with electrolytes and trace minerals. We want to enhance bile flow with lemon water, bitters, optimal PC is phosphatidylcholine from Seeking Health, and amino acids, including taurine and glycine. And TEDCA helps especially people who have taken out their gallbladder. And avoiding low-fat diets and avoiding chronic stress that will impact your bile flow. Now, we can look at supplements, but I want you to work on the lymph movement first and getting the right nutrients in your food. Detoxification is not about killing pathogens or using binders. It's about opening the flow. The lymph moves the toxins. Bile eliminates them. Together they form drainage foundation for every healing protocol. So thinking about what you can do to be your best self. And we can go back and look at the very beginning. I want you to think about order of operations to restore the flow. And think about what you can do here. Lymphatic system, the gallbladder, the gut. We need to look at all of it connected. So if you have questions and you think you're struggling getting results, maybe you need to work backwards. Look at your nervous system, the vagus nerve, look at your bile flow, look at how you're eating and digesting food, stomach acid, making sure you're not over supplementing without working on the nervous system, rewiring it. Okay, so let me know if you have questions. Head to debbiepotts.net and we can talk.